to make a nomination for the office of Senate President Pro Tempore. Senator from Edgefield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I get started, Mr. President, I've got to say that Clemson purple looks really good on you. Mr. President, I rise today for a couple reasons. First and foremost, I'm honored to nominate the Senator from Cherokee, Harvey Peeler, for the office of President Pro Tempore. Thank you for asking me, Senator. I appreciate that honor. I appreciate even more the fact that you stepped up in a circumstance where most of us understand what the outcome will be. You've earned the opportunity to be considered for President Pro Tem, and I appreciate you doing that. Second, I want to share with you some sincere concerns I have about what I expect is about to happen. When the Senate selected a new President Pro Tem in June 2014, I expressed concerns then about the consolidation of power in one person who is elected by 1/46 of the state. Now, I'm not going to rehash that speech. You're welcome. But I still have those concerns. In fact, not only have those concerns not been alleviated, I think they've actually become even more apparent and troubling. To put that into focus, I think the senator from Florence actually articulates that problem much better than I can with this fundraising invitation. Let's take a look at that for a second. I couldn't have said it any better myself, what the real problem is. Now, the senator from Cherokee recognizes this problem. Let's be honest, nearly everyone in this chamber recognizes the problem. The senator from Cherokee, though, has pledged that he would ensure a more proper distribution of power. I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, I really didn't come up here today to pick a fight with Senator from Florence. Honestly, I didn't. In fact, and I want to be clear about this, my goal here today is not to criticize Senator Leatherman. That's not at all my intention. Because this really isn't about Senator Leatherman. For that matter, it's really not about Senator Peeler. This is about all the rest of us. This is about us. It's about the Senate in which we are all privileged to serve. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe rules matter. Most of our work here is to set out rules for civilized society in South Carolina. We establish rules for how men and women interact with each other. We make rules for the protection of our environment. We create rules to ensure our children are educated. We impose consequences for violations of those rules. Sometimes those consequences are criminal. Sometimes they are civil. Sometimes they're minuscule. But the statement we make by setting those rules say who we are and what we believe. The rules matter. And the rules for what we're dealing with today are really very clear. The President Pro Tempore is a constitutional office. Article 4, Section 9 of the Constitution requires the Senate to choose a President Pro Tempore, and then it says why. The Senate shall act as soon as practicable after the convening of the General Assembly, choose a President Pro Tempore to act in the absence of the Lieutenant Governor. That is the President Pro Tempore's only constitutional job, to act in the absence of the Lieutenant Governor. That's his only constitutional job. It's the only one. So what does it mean when the person who occupies that office stands before us, right hand raised, left hand often on the Bible, and swears to exercise the duty of the office to which he has been elected, and that he will, to the best of his ability, discharge the duties thereof, and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state and of the United States, so help him God. The Constitution gives the President pro tempore one job. When he swears to exercise the duties of the office of President pro tempore, when he swears that he will discharge the duties of that office, when he swears that he will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state, does he not swear, while invoking God's guidance, to perform the one job that the Constitution of this state gives him? Now, I understand the significant differences between the offices of President pro tempore and Lieutenant Governor. We all do. And frankly, I understand a President pro tempore not wanting to vacate his Senate seat and become Lieutenant Governor. President pro tempore is arguably the most powerful position in South Carolina state government. The Lieutenant Governor is arguably the least powerful. I understand not wanting to do that. But if you took the oath, dadgummit, you ought to do it. Why would we, the rest of us who are called senators, sanction efforts to disregard that constitutional obligation? The senator from Cherokee has pledged that he will fulfill the duty if it comes. The senator from Cherokee has pledged to honor his oath. If you don't want to do the one job the Constitution gives you, though, there's a way out. You can resign. And that's the argument that we've heard today, that we're not really violating the Constitution with this shameless and obvious game of musical chairs, that we're not technically breaking the rules. In fact, we have a legal opinion to that effect. As the Senator from Moree just referenced, and the Senator's resignation letter from, about an hour ago, referenced, his attorney has advised us that this is a proper course. The problem, of course, is that the Constitution gives the President pro tempore just one job: to act in the absence of the Lieutenant Governor. Which is why, when he vacated his Senate seat and accepted that one job the Constitution required of him, former President pro tempore Glenn McConnell said, and I quote, "I will not contort the words of both the Constitution and my oath of office in order to keep a position that I might personally prefer, nor should we ever allow that in the future." Nor should we ever allow that in the future. The senator from Cherokee has stepped up today in an effort not to allow that now. Now, everyone in here, all of us who are honored to have the title senator, all 45 of us, we know this is wrong. Every one of us knows that we violate the spirit and the intent of the Constitution by sanctioning this conduct. Everybody knows that. That same Constitution that all 45 of us ask God's help in our efforts to preserve, protect, and defend. Folks, I believe the rules matter. And I believe that you believe that too. Why, with your votes today, would you say otherwise? I believe our examples matter. Now, I'm fairly confident that most South Carolinians couldn't tell you who the President pro tempore is. I'm even more confident that most of them don't care. Unless you really pay attention to state government, you probably don't understand just what power and influence the President pro tempore has. But you know what people do understand? I am absolutely confident that people understand politicians not playing by the rules. And they understand when other politicians cover for their friends who don't play for the rules. Now, we've seen that some in the past 16 or 17 hours with emails and phone calls that many of us have received. I would argue that was one of the most significant issues of the most recent presidential election. Look, folks, the public already thinks we don't play by the rules. You ask the lady walking down the street right now if she thinks politicians follow the rules. What's she going to tell you? Better yet, when you go home, ask folks what they think will happen if they don't follow the rules. And then ask them if they believe there will be consequences when they don't. Then ask them, well, what if a politician who disregards the rules, will he face the same consequences? Now, we don't need to ask those questions, do we? We already know the answers. Now, some of us have heard from a small, determined number of South Carolinians last night or this morning. I appreciate your input. Unfortunately, though, we're not going to see a lot of public outrage about this. There's not going to be a march on the State House. There won't be widespread anger. But that's not because people don't care. It's because, in large part, sadly, they expect us to do this. Too many people expect that given the choice between doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing, that politicians will do the wrong thing. As former Senator McConnell said just before he accepted his constitutional obligation, for the people of South Carolina who hear these words today or read them in the future, I want them to know that what I do today should not be considered remarkable. If what I'm doing is considered special, then it is a sad indictment of the public's view of elected officials and our commitment to what is right. Sad indictment indeed. If you care at all about that, if you care what people think, that they think that all elected officials are dishonest and corrupt, if you care about the integrity of this body, heck, even if you just care about your own integrity, why in the world would you vote today to confirm the suspicions? Again, this isn't about the senator from Florence or really even the senator from Cherokee. This is about the senators who are going to allow this to happen. A majority of this Senate who says it's important that people follow the rules and follow the law. Unless, of course, it prevents you from doing what you really want to do. Then it's okay not to follow the rules. Well, as long as you're an elected official, right? It's a heck of an example for us to set. It's a terrible example, and I've thought about this. This is a terrible example to set for the pages. The college students who are in here today or watching us right now working in our offices, to our pages and law clerks and others who may be watching, to our students in the balcony, the rules matter. The rules matter. It's not okay to disregard the rules just because they're inconvenient. Our example matters. And I encourage you to support the senator from Cherokee because he believes these rules matters. Now, during my remarks today, I've quoted a few portions from Senator McConnell's final speech as senator. And I've picked those portions because I agree with his statements. But also I think those statements are particularly relevant to the situation we have before us today. And also because I know everyone who served with him listened when he talked about the Constitution. We respected his positions and valued his input on constitutional questions. So much so that some of us still ask his advice. In that speech, Senator McConnell reminded those listening of the constitutional standards he championed during his Senate career. And then he said this.
Very difficult day for me. When I walked into the Senate 31 and a half years ago, I saw in that chair the Occupy Today, Senator Marion Gressett, President Pro Tem, Chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He became an inspiration to me about the importance of this institution as a deliberative body where detail and fairness were the norms for operation. I was one of only 5 Republicans that year, and yet I was welcomed as an active participant in the process of legislation. His character and values became my goal as a legislator. Thus, it caused me.
We're going to speed up to the relevant part. It was good. The whole speech is actually very good. I encourage you to go back and watch the whole thing, but I don't want you to make you sit through the whole 20 minutes of it. But there are some very, very relevant points. It's spot on to what we're dealing with right now.
The standard that I've applied to other things is now what I must apply to myself. You see, I've been doing for the people of Senate District 41 in this state what I've always wanted to do. Giving it up is indeed a sad moment for me. That is why I stand here today, a little bit somber and a little bit saddened, because what I will lose today when I take the oath of office is Lieutenant Governor. But for the people of South Carolina who hear these words today or read them in the future, I want them to know that what I do today should not be considered remarkable. If what I'm doing is considered special, then it's a sad indictment of the public's view of elected officials and our commitment to what is right. Today, we remind the public that oaths of office matter, and people should and can expect that whoever takes the oath of office as President Pro Tempore will do as they are sworn to do and fulfill the constitutional duty of becoming Lieutenant Governor if there is a permanent vacancy in that office. Today, I simply performed the duty I swore to do when I took the oath of office as President Pro Tempore. Robert E. Lee said, and I quote, "Duty is the most sublime word in our language. Do your duty in all things. You cannot do more. You should never wish to do less." End of quote. What I do today is what every person who seeks and holds public office should be prepared to do. Fulfill the oath of office we made to discharge the duties of the office to which we are elected, and uphold the Constitution of the state and the United States. Upholding our oaths is not really a sacrifice. It's simply a way of honoring a promise we made to those who sent us here and that we ask God to bear witness to. But if we ask God to bear witness to the pact between the governed and their representatives, then we should also be prepared for God to hold us accountable as to whether we have honored that commitment. When I learned that the Lieutenant Governor might resign, and eventually had resigned his office, I knew that I had a moral obligation to take my oath of office and to the Constitution of this state. I certainly was planning on running for re-election and hopefully serving again in this august chamber because I love this body and serving the people of South Carolina. Knowing what it is costing me, the decision was a hard one to make, but I knew I had to do. Even knowing you're doing the right thing doesn't make the decision to do the right thing an easy one. But my oath compels me to do the right thing, no matter how difficult it may be to me personally. Each Sunday morning before Mass, I pray to God to not allow power to corrupt me and to have my conscience speak to me about what is right. Although I'm saddened by what I must do, I take comfort in knowing that I've honored what I promised God to do. To my critics who said I created this, if this is what you meant by saying I was making my own bed, and I think I made an honorable bed and I'll lie in it. Our oaths of office are short statements. We swear to discharge specific duties and uphold the Constitution. It is a clear and unambiguous statement of what is expected of an office holder. During my entire political career, I have consistently fought against those who would twist or manipulate the Constitution for their personal political gain. Our state and nation suffer because of those who do not take their oath seriously and treat our constitutions as simply a means to an end. During my entire political career, I've fought to uphold the Constitution, and I will not stop upholding the Constitution no matter how difficult it may be to me personally. It's more important that I exercise the duties of the office for which I've been elected and uphold my oath. I will not contort the words of both the Constitution and my oath of office in order to keep a position that I may personally prefer. Nor should we ever allow that in the future. People of South Carolina have spoken through their Constitution as to what they require of their government. The Constitution intends that the President pro tempore of the Senate step up when a permanent vacancy in the office of Lieutenant Governor occurs. That is the clear constitutional duty of the President pro tempore. I will carry out the Constitution as I swore to do in accordance with the language as written. That is why I will soon take the oath of office as a Lieutenant Governor and thereby vacate my Senate seat. This has been one of the most difficult decisions I've ever faced. The greatest honor of my career has been representing the people of District 41 in the South Carolina Senate. But I came here with a deep commitment to the Constitution, and I will not abandon it now by not doing what I know is right. I hope I lead this body as an example to senators today and in the future of what we expected to do when duty calls. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We too have a duty. We too have oaths to uphold. Let's do the right thing. Mr. President, I nominate the Senator from Cherokee, Harvey Peeler, for President pro tempore.